What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the podcast, Time for the Views, episode 131, the Wednesday news. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the NHL because Macklin Celebrini is injured again. Plus, Agent Hutchinson out of Detroit might be out the rest of the year. Plus, MLB playoffs are amazing this year, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, let's head into college football. So we're starting off this week in college football because we got so much news to cover. I thought this would be the best first topic of the day. Today we are recording this on Tuesday morning. Yes, no school today for me for Tuesday morning. Awesome. But because of the rest of the schedule, I'm trying to get this out for you guys at the normal Wednesday time. So if anything happens between Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, it will not be in this episode. So let's roll into all the news now. We'll start off with a couple of injuries to note. Florida quarterback Graham Mertz tore his ACL and will be out the rest of the season. Also, Utah quarterback Cam Rising will still not play a full season. He'll be out indefinitely with a leg injury. He did play this last game against Arizona State. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But they came back on Monday morning. Coach Whittingham said he will be out indefinitely, and Isaac Wilson will be the quarterback moving forward. Some notable results from this past weekend. We'll start off at the biggest game, number 2 versus number 3, Ohio State versus Oregon. Oregon edges this one out 32-31 in a great classic game between the two. And this might not be the last time we see these two face each other. So it could be a very interesting matchup moving forward down the line. Then we got South Carolina just falling short against number 7, Alabama. They won this one 27-25. South Carolina did get an onside kick at the end of the game. Did make a couple good pushes near the end, but fell short through an interception as time expired towards Alabama. So Alabama holds off, wins this one in a close match. And then Texas and Oklahoma had the Red River rivalry this week, and Texas destroyed this one 34-31. Penn State went to USC, had to force overtime in this one, but got the win 33-30. Pitt hosted Cal, ended up just getting the edge in this one 17-15. Illinois had to go to overtime with Purdue, ended up winning this one 50-49. BYU undefeated going into the weekend, and they're staying undefeated 6-0. They beat Arizona 41-19. Tennessee had to go to overtime with Florida. They won this one though 23-17. LSU at home against number 9 Ole Miss had to go to overtime as well. They ended up winning this one 29-26. And lastly, Kansas State edging out Colorado on a questionable final play. 4th down. Could it have been a pass interference against Kansas State to keep the drive alive for Colorado, trying to at least tie the game up? I think it probably should have, but all in all, was not called. Kansas State wins this one 31-28. All right, let's head into probably the most controversial top 25 for the AP polls that I've seen in a while, but let's get into the rankings and then I'll tell you my thoughts and feelings about it. Number 1, Texas, they don't move at all. Number 2, Oregon, they jump up 1. Penn State jumps up 1-3. Ohio State drops 2-4. Georgia stays put at 5. Miami stays put at 6. Alabama stays put at 7. LSU gets a plus 5-8. Iowa State gets a plus 2-9. Clemson stays put at 10. Tennessee drops 3-11. Notre Dame drops 1-12. BYU gets a plus 1-13. Texas A&M gets a plus 1-14. Boise State gets a plus 2-15. Indiana gets a plus 2-16. Kansas State gets a plus 1-17. Ole Miss drops 9-18. Missouri gets a plus 2-19. Pitt gets a plus 2-20. SMU gets a plus 4-21. Illinois gets a plus 1-22. Army goes from unranked to 23. Michigan stays put at 24. And Navy goes from unranked to 25. Both Army and Navy are in the same AP Top 25 poll since 1960. So congrats to both of those schools. Other receiving votes for this week, the top 5. Vanderbilt was number 1 at 68. Nebraska 62. Arizona State forks up, baby, at 39. Oklahoma at 36. And Washington State at 32. All right, let's get into why I think this is very controversial. So looking at the top, I think the top 5 is great. I think that's perfect. Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Georgia. I don't think anything that should be moved. Miami, Alabama, following up, that's fine with me. LSU at 8, yep. Iowa State, I don't know what Iowa State really has done to deserve a top 10 ranking. I don't know how they got to this point. good for them, I guess. I guess they won at the right times and they just keep on winning, but I don't think they're a top 10 school whatsoever. Clemson, kind of surprised they're top 10, but they're actually doing very well, so I think that's good. Tennessee drops a little bit from their match. They still won that game. Yeah, they're not as good as they were last probably 2 weeks ago, but I still think they should probably be a top 10 school. I think they're better than Iowa State too. Notre Dame drops. BYU comes up to 13. I think those are fine. A&M at 14, kind of surprised, but I'm okay with it overall. Boise State at 15. I really like that one. Indiana, kind of surprised they're still in the top 10, or top 25, excuse me. Kansas State, fine. Ole Miss dropping 9 to 18. I think that's a good drop. Ole Miss honestly has not been that good since they lost to Kentucky. They're not very impressive. Missouri +2 to 19, that's fine. Pitt at 20, kind of surprised, but that's fine. SMU at 21, very surprising. I don't think SMU has played anybody. Illinois at 22, kind of surprised, but I also don't think they're better than 22, so I kind of like that ranking. This is where it gets very controversial to me. Army, no disrespect to Army or Navy, but looking at their schedules, they should not be ranked at all. Plus, looking at Michigan, that is a Big Ten biasy right there. Army, their schedule this year, they played Lehigh 142-7, beat FAU 24-7, beat Rice 37-14, beat Temple 42-14, beat Tulsa 49-7, and beat UAB 44-10. That is not a good schedule. You give that to Michigan, Michigan's undefeated. You give that to Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt's undefeated. So I don't think this schedule really makes them better than Vanderbilt, Nebraska, and definitely not Arizona State. I'll get into more of that, or where I think ASU should be. But I don't think they're better than Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma has 2 losses on their schedule. For Navy's situation, they went from unranked to 25. They played Bucknell 49-21, excuse me. Beat Temple 38-11, beat Memphis 56-44, beat UAB 41-18, and beat Air Force 34-7. That is not a good schedule either. They're 5-0 to start the year. Good for them. But again, I think if any of these teams that are receiving votes had that schedule, I think all those teams would also be undefeated. I don't think that's a good strength of schedule to get yourself into the top 25 polls over teams that, even though they do have a loss, have better losses or better wins compared to Navy or Army. When you look at Michigan, they're 4-2 on the year. They beat Fresno State 30-10, lost at home to Texas 31-12. Beat Arkansas State 28-18, beat USC 27-24, beat Minnesota 27-24, and then lost the most recent game to Washington 17-27, and they're coming off a bye. I don't know how Michigan is still in this top 25 poll. Yes, they're reigning champs. Yes, they're in the Big Ten, but if you take away all of that, this is not a good record based off of their strength of schedule here. And USC might be their best win, and yet that is not a good win by looking at what USC has done the last 6 weeks. They're 3-3, so I don't think Michigan's schedule deserves to be a top 25. So what do I think? I think all bottom of those 3 teams should not be in the top 25. I think we should probably have Vanderbilt at 23. I think ASU at 24 and Nebraska at 25. I think that's how the polls should have been this week. I think ASU could be better than Vanderbilt, but I think just because of what Vanderbilt did to Alabama, I think that deserves a little bit more boost in the rankings, so I think they should deserve 24. I think ASU should at least be a 24, if not higher. I think they're better than Illinois. I think they're better than SMU. I think they're better than Pitt. I think that's probably where it stops there. So maybe about 20 area at the high. But ASU, their schedule. Let's just get into Arizona State's update right here. They're 5-1. They beat Utah at home on Friday night, 27-19. Cam Skattebo, electric. One of the best running backs in the country. If you take out Ashton Gentry, we're going to be talking about Cam Skattebo. 22 carries, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 huge touchdown runs that were over 35 or 40 yards each. Cam Rising on the other side, his first game in 4 weeks, excuse me, with the bye. Rising did not look good. 16-37, 209 yards, 3 interceptions for the Arizona State defense. Rising looked terrible. He looked old, could not move very well. But it's still Cam Rising. It's still Utah. They're ranked 16th in the country. They didn't rank Cam Skattebo 16th in the country. So I don't want to hear about, oh, they beat up on a back quarterback. Yes, but Utah is still 16th in the country. Their defense still deserves to be 16th in the country. Their offense before Cam Rising was in there, deserved to be 16th in the country. And that's because Micah Bernard, 21 carries, 129 yards, 1 touchdown, really kept that game close for the Utes because that offense was not looking all that great. But Arizona State, big win at home. One of the most legendary post-game interviews with the head coach, with Kenny Dillingham. I think ASU deserves to be in the top 25. They're 5-1. They beat Wyoming 48-7 at home to start off the year. Beat Mississippi State 30-23. SEC school, yes, I know they're not a great SEC school, but I still think that deserves a boost in the rankings. Texas State, that was a trap game. That was a Thursday night game. They won that one 31-28. They had to come from behind in that game as well. So I think that deserves a little bit of a boost there. Texas State is still a very good team out of the Sun Belt. I think they might have 2 losses right now, so they're not going to make it into the playoffs. But I think Texas State is still a well-deserved opponent and should not be overlooked. Texas Tech, that was their first real road test in the Big 12. They lost that one 22-30, but I do think that was a good game. Made a couple of bad decisions when it came to players and flags and stuff like that. So they beat up themselves on that one, but they kept it within a touchdown and 2-point conversion. So I do think that was a very good loss. And Texas Tech is 5-1. They're tops in the Big 12. So I think that's a very good loss. So they're going into that one 3-1. Going into Kansas game, they win that one 35-31, and they beat Utah last week 27-19. 5-1, much better resume than anybody in the Army-Navy scheduling, and even better than the Michigan scheduling. So I don't know how Arizona State doesn't crack this top 25. I don't know what they got to do to get themselves into the top 25 because I don't know what the committee is looking at. Are they not looking at Arizona State because their late games being 7 o'clock or 7:30 local time, which is 11:30 East Coast time? I don't know if they're looking at that. I don't know what they're looking at and what they want from Arizona State to get into the top 25 because there's not much better than you could do here. I don't really know what they're trying to look for. It's very frustrating and annoying, but I guess Arizona State just has to keep playing harder, and that's probably the only thing you could do because I don't know what else you got to do to get more respect because they're better than Vanderbilt and Nebraska, but they're third in the polls when it comes to receiving votes. So they're really 28th in the country, and I don't agree with that at all. This week, they play against Cincinnati on the road, 9 a.m. local time kick, even though they're in Cincinnati, so 12 o'clock kickoff. Cincinnati is 4-2, so it is a good matchup. Right now, I guess ESPN has them at an over 60% chance of Cincinnati winning this game, which I do not think is correct. ESPN does not know what they're talking about. ASU is way better than Cincinnati. I expect ASU to win, go to 6-1, and I really don't know how Cincinnati is going to beat this team. This team is hungry for more wins. They have a great coach. They have a great offense, a really good defense right now. I think ASU is a force to be reckoned with, and I don't know what they need to do to impress anybody else because they've impressed me. They've impressed all these fans out here. We didn't expect them to be 5-1 at this point. If you told us we were going to be 5-1, I think we'd take that and we'd be screaming and yelling and pretty much just been excited about that. We're excited about that now, but we want more. We want to see 6-1. We want to get to a bowl game at the very least, and I think ASU is definitely going to hit that bowl game this week. So I don't know what they need to do to get to the top 25 polls. I would say a win this week and you're guaranteed in there, but I said that last week and we're still not in there. So I don't know what's more expected for Arizona State. But we'll move on. Let's get into the games to watch this week. I got ASU versus Cincinnati as my top game for the first game. 9 a.m. ESPN Plus. Obviously already said why. Nebraska versus number 16 Indiana, 9 a.m. as well on Fox. Should be a good matchup. You got Indiana undefeated. You got Nebraska at 5-1. Really good matchup for Nebraska to see what they could do on the road. Number 7 Alabama versus number 11 Tennessee, 12:30 a.m. on ABC. Early matchup, early kickoff, but a very good matchup between the two. Should be a lot of fun. And your college game day site, number 5 Georgia versus number 1 Texas, 4:30 p.m. on ABC. If Georgia wins this game, SEC is wide open. That means everybody has at least one loss in the SEC. If Texas wins this game, I think they're right away in the SEC title game. I don't know how they would would not make it into there based off of beating a really good Georgia team. But if Georgia goes on the road, ends up upsetting and winning that game on the road, then I think it's wide open. Anybody can make it in, especially with how many teams in the SEC are in the top 25. So should be a very good matchup there. Underdog picks. So last week we had Vanderbilt at a plus 14. They outright won that game 20-13 against Kentucky. So season total points, we're up to 56. We're actually cruising right now, back-to-back outright wins for the Talking with Beauties right here. But this week we got UNLV versus Oregon State. Oregon State opens this one up at a plus 7.5 underdog. I got Oregon State 7 p.m. on the CW network. It should be a close game, but UNLV has been playing very well. Oregon State hasn't looked too bad, but ever since their loss to Oregon, no one's really been talking about them. So I think Oregon State maybe makes a bounce-back game, kind of makes their presence known against a good UNLV team. I think they at least keep it close and cover, but I think there's a good chance that they do outright win this, especially because they are hosting this matchup. So it should be a good game. Sucks it's on the CW network, but two good opponents going at each other late night. All right, let's head to the NHL now, where we have a couple of signings. Seattle and Joey Daccord agreed to a 5 years, $5 million AAV. Go Devils. Joey Daccord staying in Seattle. I'm loving that move big time. Ottawa also signs their goaltender Linus Ullmark to 4 years, $8.25 million AAV, exactly what Jeremy Swayman got, but with less years on the contract. Really like that contract too. Hopefully Ullmark does translate well in Ottawa, because Ottawa definitely needs a good goaltender performance this season. Montreal and Toronto played game one of the season for both of them, and Samuel Montembeault got a shutout in that one, 47 save shutout on day one versus Toronto. But the more important thing is Toronto has not been shut out in 227 games up until that one, so that's a huge win for not just Montreal, but Toronto has to answer for that. They come back, they win the next two games, so they're 2-1 to start the year. But a huge shutout for Montembeault. He might be the dedicated starter moving forward, especially with a good 47 save shutout performance there. Columbus Blue Jackets Boone Jenner, their captain, expected to miss the next 5 months with a shoulder injury. He also had surgery to repair that shoulder as well. Florida's Alexander Barkov will miss 2 to 3 weeks with a lower body injury. Coach Paul Maurice said he's hopeful for his return in the Global Series in Finland, which is where Barkov is from, so hopefully he's able to get healthy for those games. And as we said at the top of the show, Macklin Celebrini is on the IR with a lower body injury. I think this is also back from the injury that he had in preseason, where he fell into the boards. He did not play the rest of the preseason. Did make his debut, though. Scored in that debut, also got an assist. He becomes the 6th #1 overall pick to score in an NHL debut since 2000. He joins these 5 players: Austin Matthews, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, John Tavares, Alex Ovechkin, and Rick Nash, to all score in their debut as the 1st overall pick in their respective draft. Celebrini, his goal, a little bit of fluke, but at least he got that first one out of the way. He could go back and just play. Bad thing is, it will be a little bit since he's on the IR. Hopefully, it's not too severe, but he's going to be missing some time with that lower body injury. All right, let's head to the NFL now. Houston wide receiver Nico Collins is on the IR with a hamstring injury, did not play this past weekend. Indiana's wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. also did not play this past weekend. He'll be out multiple weeks, though, with a back injury. Detroit Lions Aiden Hutchinson broke his tibia in the game versus Dallas, went to Dallas hospital right when it happened, had immediate surgery, and it was a nasty injury. The leg pretty much wrapped around his teammate's leg. Very gruesome looking injury. Unclear on the timeline return. I would expect him to be out the rest of the season. Dan Campbell said we're hopeful that he will be back in the season. I highly doubt he will be, so I think Hutchinson is done for the rest of the year. Washington defensive lineman Jonathan Allen will also be out the rest of the season. He has a pectoral tear. Biggest news from this morning when I woke up, Davante Adams, the trade rumors are officially over and done. He is going to the New York Jets. The Raiders will receive a third-round pick, which is a conditional pick, and it could become a second-round pick. Not sure what the terms are on that, though. But Davante Adams going to New York to play with his old quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. I don't think this is the answer for the Jets. They're coming off a loss on Monday night to Buffalo. Rodgers looks old. I will say that. I think he's struggling. They're 2-4 right now. I think having Davante out there will also help with familiarity. But I don't think Davante is the answer, and they're going to be a top team in their conference or their division. So I don't think New York's going to benefit too much from this, but I think definitely Davante is going to help with what he can. All right, let's head to the MLB now, where we have the NL and ALCS underway. Dodgers versus Mets and Guardians versus Yankees. We'll start off in the National League. Dodgers came into this one shutting out the Padres in back-to-back games, and they went into Game 1 with another shutout, a 9-1 win for the Dodgers. Jack Flaherty went 7 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Ohtani went 2 for 4 with an RBI and a walk. Kike also hitting amazing in the postseason. This guy is a postseason phenom. He's batting .385 this postseason. He went 2 for 4 in that game, scored 2 runs. So after that game, 33 consecutive innings of shutout ball for the Dodgers pitching, which tied a postseason record. So they went into Game 2 needing just to get out of the first inning to have that record by themselves. Unfortunately, Francisco Lindor was up to bat, crushed a home run, a solo shot in Game 2 to start it off. So that that postseason record stayed at 33. Lindor went 1 for 4 in that game, but did have that big home run to start out that game. Mark Vientos went 2 for 5, had a grand slam in that one, made it pretty much out of reach at that point. Mets went on to win this one 7-3. Sean Manaea pitched very good, 5 innings, 2 hits, 3 runs, 2 of those are earned, 4 walks, and 7 Ks. The bullpen for the Mets, lights out. 4 innings, 3 hits, 4 walks, 4 Ks, 0 runs for the Mets bullpen. So they head back to New York, series tied at 1 apiece. Also, this is a best-of-7 matchup now, so it should be a very interesting next couple of games. See if the Mets are able to steal 2 at home. If that is the case, then the Dodgers are going to be backpedaling big time. But I expect the Dodgers to kind of bounce back, maybe put up a better offensive performance, because Ohtani, Betts, Teoscar, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, and Kike Hernandez all went 0 for in that game. They went for a combined 0 for 26 in that game, only scored 2 runs, 6 walks, and 9 strikeouts. So those guys got to get it going, especially Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Teoscar. That's the top of your order right there. You got to get that going. Freeman is hurt, I will give him that, but you still got to put ball in play. Ohtani has no hits with runners on, without runners on. When runners are on, he's batting like over 600 right now. So Ohtani's got to figure it out. He's got to be the rally starter. But offense for the Dodgers, not looking great. We head to the American League, where we had Game 1 last night. Yankees won that one 5-2. Carlos Rodon pitched great. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 9 strikeouts. That 1 run coming off a home run by Ryan Rocchio, I believe is how you say it. He went 2 for 3, had that home run, and 1 run scored. But Jose Ramirez did not play well, 0 for 4 in that game. Alex Cobb started the pitching, 2 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks. Juan Soto for the Yankees, went 2 for 3, had a home run and a walk. So really good performance by the Yankees overall. They won that one 5-2. So hopefully the Guardians kind of get back into that one, but right now it does not look good for them. I would expect the Yankees to go up 2-0 based off of what they did last night. All right, let's head to college hockey. We'll start off with some notable results from this past weekend. We had number 2 Boston College versus number 4 Michigan State. They split the series. Saturday went to BC, 3-0 win, and Saturday went to Michigan State, a 4-3 win for them. Arizona State versus number 13 Michigan. ASU hosting this one, but Michigan took Game 1 4-1. Game 2 was technically a 3-3 tie, but ASU did win that one in a shootout, so a big win. Big come-from-behind win by Arizona State. 2 goals scored in the final minutes. I think only about 10 to 15 seconds apart between those 2 goals. So a big point stolen there for Arizona State, so great job by them. Number 14, UMass played number 16, Omaha in the Icebreaker tournament. That game went to overtime. Omaha winning that one 3-2. And then Omaha also had to play number 5, Minnesota. That game also went to overtime. Same tournament. Omaha winning that one 2-1. Lindenwood visited number 9, Wisconsin. Stole the first game, winning that one 4-2. And Wisconsin had to force overtime, but did win that one in game 2, 3-2. Merrimack played Minnesota State, which is 19th in the country. Merrimack winning the first one 1-0, but did get blown out in the next game 4-1 for the Mavericks. All right, let's head to the top 25. Denver, Boston College, Boston University, Michigan State all stayed put at 1-4. North Dakota jumps up 1-5. Minnesota drops 1-6. Cornell, Quinnipiac stay put at 7 and 8. Michigan gets a plus 4 to 9. Maine stays put at 10. Colorado College gets a plus 1 to 11. Omaha gets a plus 4 to 12. St. Cloud State gets plus 2 to 13. Providence drops 3 to 14. Wisconsin drops 6 to 15. Western Michigan drops 1 to 16. UMass drops 3 to 17. Notre Dame stays put at 18. Northeastern gets plus 1 to 19. And Penn State gets them unranked to 20. Michigan State was the only one to drop out. They dropped out from 19. Other receiving votes, even though they don't have the amount of votes, these were the top 5. Minnesota State, Arizona State, Michigan Tech, St. Thomas, and Ohio State. I will say, I think Omaha deserves to be higher based off of their wins. A very good win against a UMass team, which they actually leapfrogged them. But Minnesota is top 5 at the time. I think they deserve to be bumped up higher. Minnesota only dropping 1 spot. Omaha jumping up 4. I think they deserve to be higher. But long season, I think Omaha definitely is going to use that momentum going 2-0 on the weekend. ASU update for college hockey. We mentioned they split against Michigan, lost the first game 4-1, but tied the next game, I guess, would be what it's officially called, even though they did win that one in a shootout. But what do I think of the team this year? This is the first time I actually watched the games. I was not able to watch the first 2 games because of the streaming network that had the Air Force ASU game. So ASU, what do I think of them? They're not as good as last year. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're not as good as last year. Last year, I thought offense was very good. Power play was very good. You had Copperwood on that left side waiting for those 1-Ts. You could tell on the power play this year, they are running that same type of formation where they look for those one-timers in the face-off dots. Unfortunately, they just don't have the passes to make it. I don't know if that's because Michigan's penalty kill is really good, which they played outstanding this 2 games. I will say that they had 3 shorthanded goals for Michigan, so the power play either was very sloppy for Arizona State or the penalty kill for Michigan was very good. So I think got to clean that up. Obviously, we'll see this weekend against Providence if that will get cleaned up, if it was a Michigan being really good at the penalty kill, or if it was Arizona State being very bad at the power play. Also, I thought they played the body way too much. A lot of 50-50 pucks that I thought they could have gotten to. They chose to play the body instead. I think they got to clean that up. Play the puck. You'll win some 50-50 pucks. You'll make some better chances for you going forward. So ASU, not as good as last year. Not a very good first impression to me and the rest of the fans at Mullet Arena. But we got a bright side. Defenseman Noah Beck does lead the NCAA in points with 8, 1 goal, 7 assists. So congrats to you, Beck. But can he keep it up? I'm not too sure. He's one of the new transfers coming in, so he did make a good first impression with the fans here. But I think ASU has a lot moving forward. I think they got to prove when they go to Providence this upcoming weekend that they deserve to hang with these big guys. It's not going to get any easier. You got a lot of tough teams on your schedule moving forward. So wins against lower ranked teams like Providence, even though it's a top 20 team, you got to at least get the splits there. So Arizona State, I hope for a split. I'm going to root for a split. I think we're going to get a split this weekend against the Friars. All right, let's head to the cleanup. Not a lot to talk about. We do have college football. First AP polls dropping, though. We'll give you your rankings right here. Kansas jumps up to 1 to start off the year. Alabama at 2, UConn at 3, Houston at 4, Iowa State at 5. Gonzaga at 6, Duke at 7, Baylor at 8, North Carolina at 9, and Arizona at 10. Auburn at 11, Tennessee at 12, Texas A&M at 13, Purdue at 14, Creighton at 15. Arkansas at 16, Indiana at 17, Marquette at 18, Texas at 19, and Cincinnati at 20. Florida at 21, UCLA at 22, Kentucky at 23, Ole Miss at 24, and Rutgers at 25. Those are your top 25 first AP polls for college basketball. And the other news, we had a lot of friendlies go down for international play, but I'm only going to talk about the U.S. men's national team. They won 2-0 over Panama. This is the first game under Mauricio Pochettino. Personally, don't think this game was all impressive. Pochettino did not put too much into there besides a different formation. You could tell a little bit different tactics, especially when the team lost the ball. They were right up on there to get that ball back. So that's a positive. That's something I looked at and was kind of impressed by. But overall, not very entertaining game in my eyes. A win's a win. I'm happy they got the win there. But nothing too special compared to what if this game was coached by Berhalter. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday at night against Mexico. But they're going to be doing it without a couple star players. Christian Pulisic has to return back to his club because of load management. And the next 4 players all leaving with minor injuries. They just don't want to push it forward. Marlon Fossey, Weston McKennie, Ricardo Pepi, and Zach Steffen. So good players. Definitely Pulisic would be one that would be in the starting lineup. With the other guys, I'm not too sure. Pepe's been the one coming off the bench. Steffen might have gotten a start in net. Fossey, I don't think would have gotten a start. McKennie should have got a start against Mexico, but who knows? I think Pochettino's trying to figure out his own starting 11, and now not having these guys, I guess it's going to be a big opportunity for 5 new guys to step up and maybe put up a very good performance against Mexico. So I think even though these games don't matter, I think not just for Pochettino, moving forward to go 2-0 to start off his U.S. men's national team debut. But I think for the players moving forward to show that, hey, I deserve to be in the starting roster or at least be called up to the national team and give someone else who's stepping in front of me a run for their money, make it hard to choose them over me. So I think there's a lot on the line, not just result-wise, but for the players and for coaching-wise, a lot to look forward to on Tuesday night. All right, let's head to games of the weekend. We'll start off in the MLB. Saturday at 5:08, you got Game 5 of the ALCS. And if that game, for some reason, or if that series is a sweep, on Sunday we have Game 6, which is obviously an if necessary game of the NLCS Sunday, also at 5:08 p.m. The ALCS will be on TBS networks, and the NLCS will be on Fox networks. For the NHL, we got the Rangers versus the Maple Leafs. That's Saturday at 4 p.m. Then for the NFL, I got the Chiefs versus the Niners, Sunday at 1:25 on Fox. For college football, I got number 5 Georgia versus number 1 Texas, 4:30 p.m. on ABC. And lastly, I got college hockey, number 8 Quinnipiac versus number 10 Maine, Friday at 4 p.m. and Saturday at 4:30 p.m. All right, guys, that will do it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. 131 episodes in the books. Appreciate you guys listening to this one. Hopefully not too much new news came out between the recording and the release, but if it did, my apologies. Had to get this one out anyways to record because of my time schedule. But appreciate you guys listening to this one. Have an awesome weekend. Watch some sports because there's a lot to look forward to this weekend. So hopefully you guys have an awesome weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.